Hi, I'm John.
This is Nick,
I'm Andrew.
and welcome everybody to episode 6 of JNA Podcast. Hope everybody is staying safe, and hopefully everybody's getting back to work during this crisis. Today's episode, we're going to be doing a little bit about UFOs and aliens. Andrew, one of your hosts, has come up with this topic. It was his turn to pick it. He wants to go over a couple things and kind of give us a little spiel before we actually go into our topic. So, Andrew, go ahead.
I can't believe people are actually going to listen to me talk about UFO and aliens, man. This is fucking awesome. All right. I got a question I want to ask both of you guys to help us further understand this topic and people that we're going to be talking about. I want to ask you, John, what do you think makes a credible witness? What makes a person believable?
Someone who has a proven track of, good mental health. Somebody perhaps whose job relies on a specific amount of visual acuity. I do know where you're going with this question, so that's it. Basically, someone you would trust with a weapon.
Okay. What about you, Nick? What do you think will make a credible witness?
Well, definitely not a drug addict. I'll tell you that right now. Somebody that's proven to be, I guess I should say a good track record with, being honest and just. It's kind of a hard question to answer, honestly, because what does really make a credible witness? If you don't know, how do you prove they're credible until you actually do some research? You know what I mean? So, reliable witness, I guess it's just based on the character, I would say.
Even like if you go on Google and you Google like credible witness, it's really hard to find like pretty much anything. Usually, find stuff basically about attorneys, like popular attorneys. Basically, what they think is makes a credible witness. One thing you will find on, which is not surprising, is you'll find a lot of police stuff on credible witnesses. From police1.com, and I just want to let everybody know that like everything I will be stating, I will be giving out the source here on the podcast, and I'm sure John will label it in the video too. But this one comes from police1.com, and they have a list of what makes a credible witness, and they got reasons why. Like for instance, one of the first ones is youth and young age, and after the person ability to receive and report the events that they witness. People that are younger tend to have better memories. Also, number 2, the old age. People that are older kind of have a spotty memory, but they tend to be more experienced and have more vocabulary to report what they saw. And then you have 3, which is pretty much an obvious one: intelligence. General accuracy of the information is greater with the more intelligent person. The thing on their list is mental state. Is the person healthy? Is the person seem erratic? Does the person seem like they're on drugs? Person have a history of mental health issues, etc. Just like what you both were stating. 5 is the relationship with the people involved. How do they know each other? How do they interact with each other? Do they hate each other? Do they like each other? On and so forth. And based this kind of like wraps it all up into one, but it's basically background characteristics. The more positive their background, the more likely they're less to lie. Oh, that's coming from the cops, and I'm not a big fan of cops myself, but you to think that the cops would put a great deal into study and trying to figure out what makes a credible witness. You know what I mean?
I guess the cops themselves can't be that reliable half the time anyways. Just saying.
I mean, their whole entire job is basically around trying to figure out who's reliable and what they're saying and who's not. You know what I mean? So that's basically how they spill it down. If you do go to police1.com, they have a more thorough article in case you're more curious about that. I think that when you come to this topic, guys, I wanted to bring up the credible witness thing because I think that's like the biggest part is that, I mean, you can like give you photos and like videos all day, but just keep saying or whatever, they could be fake, but it's whether or not you believe what the people are saying. You know what I mean? Like somebody's got a clean background, somebody has like never been arrested, never been known to lie, and they say that they just saw something. Do we have any reason that we shouldn't believe them?
Probably not.
Yeah. What about you, Nick? What do you think?
I think when it comes to things like this, however, I mean, it could very easily be mistaken. By the way, I believe in UFOs and aliens. I'll say that right now. But there's a lot of these stories, which I have a couple myself, that it kind of seems iffy. I mean, you're looking at something that's very far away for you to make that type of allegation that it is a UFO or what have you. It's kind of hard to just take it for what it is. So whether they're a reliable witness or not, people do kind of not only exaggerate things, but people do kind of, in the snap of a moment, they see things differently. So they could have seen something that they fully believe might have been a UFO or whatever, but it very could possibly not. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard to distinguish.
That's going to bring me right into my first topic. I'd just like to state that real quick for people. UFOs are described as unidentified flying object, is an aerial phenomenon that cannot immediately be identified. Most UFOs are identified as investigation of conventional objects of phenomenon. Then the term is widely used for talking about extraterrestrial spacecraft. That's if you Google UFOs definition, that's what Wiki's going to give you right there. What Nick was just saying would pretty much brings me into my very first incident that I want to talk about. Is Commander David Fravor. He has a podcast with Joe Rogan. If people want to listen to that, and he also has an article on the New York Times. They have a pretty in-depth article if you want to Google that. And everything that I'm going to be giving off about this incident is going to be coming off of Wiki. I also have some information about it from the New York Times article that they did. Commander David Fravor is a U.S. Navy pilot. He's a Navy pilot, I think, for about 18 years now. He's been in the military 20 years. He has over 4,000 flying hours. When it comes to pretty much every certification known to man, when it comes to flying anything, any jet, any airplane, he's pretty much got all those certifications. When it comes to having a trained eye, I don't know if you can have more of a trained eye in the air than somebody like this. That's just been in the air. 4,000 hours is a long ass time. I don't know if I've done anything besides video games. 4,000 hours in my job, that's a lot of time right there. This incident happened back in 2004 when his incident's actually called the USS Nimitz U.F.O incident. It was a radar and visual encounter of an unidentified flying object from U.S. pilots in the Nimitz Carrier State Group in 2004. There were two different pilots who were flying in two-seaters. Okay, they were flying A-18 Super Hornets, pilots led by Commander David Fravor, the squad of the Street Strike Fighter Squadron. They were heading out basically to do a routine run, trying to I think there was some kind of routine run where they were doing it with the Marines, and they were doing like a bad guy, good guy thing. But apparently, Commander David Fravor's people that are on the radar on his ship have had problems with spotting items on the radar, but never been able to get actual fighter pilots' eyes on them. And they set them out to investigate this. They set them out there. First, they say that they seen a white tic-tac looking object hovering above the water, and it looked like the water was kicking up, like there was causing a disturbance in the water. It's pretty interesting because he says he gets about, I think about 20,000 feet above it, which in the air he states is really not that big of he had a pretty good eyes on it, and him and his other fighter pilot described it as object, like if you take a ping pong ball and you drop it inside of a glass and you shake it about, that's the way he says it was moving. It didn't have it didn't move like it was moving like north, south, east, and west, like it was having it was stopping then changing direction. It was just acceleration, just moving around and once they spotted it, they turned around and they tried to get a closer look on it, and that's when it started moving. When it started moving, of course, they tried to follow it. Then they got if you go on YouTube, you Google UFO or USS Nimitz UFO incident, you watch this video that they took of the video, and if you watch the Joe Rogan Experience, Commander David Fravor does an excellent job of describing exactly what's going on in that video. It's a fuckload more qualified to do that to me. But it basically comes in a few different ways. Its video is only about 2 minutes long, and then it takes off to the left. Now, when it takes off to the left, when you're watching it on the video, it doesn't look like it's moving that fast. But when you hear him describe it, it says that thing's out of here because it's got such a wide view that they're doing that video with. He's like the speed that it took off on, and we don't have anything that comes even remotely close. So, That's basically his incident wrapped up in a nutshell. But that's the reason why I wanted to talk about a credible witness, like because him, guy in his back seat, and then the other fire pilot, and the person in their back seat, all four of them describe the same exact thing that they saw, and all four of them are highly qualified to understand exactly what they're seeing. I mean, they're not going to go up there and like they're not going to mistake a helicopter for anything else. For Christ's sakes, I mean they've got 4,000 hours. They know what they're looking at least in my opinion. You know what I mean?
I would agree. I did watch that episode on Joe Rogan, by the way, with David Fabers. That if you had to, point out a credible witness in this type of instance, that I guess that would call for one, and that would be a good one for in my opinion, because I believe in the stuff, and for somebody that has that experience in kind of that much hours in the air, kind of traveling at high speeds like that, is used to kind of looking out and knowing what he's looking at. So yeah, I think I believe him.
Yeah. Of course he's gonna know what he's looking at. You have that much time up there flying. And on top of that, being in the military, you've seen every staff that you possibly fly for the U.S. military, like over and over again. Like it's hard to mistake anything else for it.
I agree. What about you, John? Do you believe it or not?
Well, I'm not about to try and say, oh, this man is lying or otherwise, saying something. You brought up an interesting phrasing. You said, he would have known what he was looking at. I would actually tend to disagree. He knows what it's not. He doesn't know what it is.
Okay, yeah.
Well, that's a good point. That is a good point. But just to kind of elaborate on that point, I guess it was mainly like just with that experience. When you're up there in the air, it's not like you're 10-2 and you're just focused on straight forward. He's more relaxed. He's got more confidence in his ability to to drive that plane. And I assume, and I guess this is just me assuming, that because of that experience and because of that comfortability he does have in the air, that he could actually lock eyes or actually look at something and pass a good judgment on it. You know what I mean? Other than somebody with no experience just getting a quick glance and then kind of focusing back on what they're doing, that's a little different. This is somebody many hours in the air doing the same thing over and over again, probably driving one of the same planes he's driven over and over again, or flying as.
Also, the way he was actually tracking it too, because after took the video that like he was tracking it, he says he gets it as about as half a mile close to the thing. All of a sudden, it literally just disappears right in front of him. Like it just completely vanishes. Now he's got two different viewpoints because about 20,000 feet above him, that's where the people that he's flying with is viewing it too, and they said the same thing. Like literally, he's following it, and then boom, the thing disappears. It's not. Look, I don't have any flying experience at all, but it's just hard for me to imagine that being anything that we could make anything. I don't even if it's a weather balloon that popped. Like I refuse to believe that this guy that has spent 16, 18 years flying jets is going to mistake a weather balloon popping for anything else.
All right.
You know what I mean? Especially like I do know in the air, if you're like a half a mile away from something, that's really close, man. Our planes don't even get close when they're flying up. Yeah. It's extremely close.
And
I agree.
I think it's worth pointing out, especially because it's not something we hear, people who just walk around really have an experience with. When you start dealing with verticality, perspective, and how things look in terms of distance is a lot different. Looking at something from, any number of feet up, and I'm talking, say excess of 100 or something. Well, hell, actually easier. If you've ever climbed on a ladder and then looked down on the ground, even if it's only like a 12-foot ladder, it looks a lot further away than it actually is.
Sometimes it does. That's the reason why I'm saying we're talking about someone that's experienced up there. Like, that's true. Like for an average person, say if you go to climb on top of your roof and you look down, it's going to look a lot further away than it actually is. But for a roofer, it most likely will not. He's used to it.
Well,
what I mean?
I mean, in terms of visual acuity and resolution, like the way
okay, I
we
can understand that.
see at distance, especially concerning verticality, is different than the way we see something from a horizontal point of view.
Right. Okay, get that.
And or I guess what I'm actually trying to get at with this is that even though we're talking about very far distances, 20,000 feet, half miles, so on and so forth, when you start taking verticality into the equation, and you have to remember that this sighting was also done over the ocean, like it's clear, it's flat. There's not a whole lot of anything that's going to give you distortion. It's not going to make things harder or more difficult to pick out.
There is something I can't remember exactly what it's called, but there is like a phenomenon that happens with pilots that are in the air and they view like the sun being the atmosphere tends to have like give them like different like distortions and they could see like glowing balls and stuff like that. This is something that they were not actively on their radar and it was actively jamming their radar, but they were like actively chasing the thing down.
Yeah.
This is not something, yeah, this is not something that just popped up and then it disappeared. Like it could be mistaken. Like this is, I think it happened over like a half an hour of time. This is something like an object that they were clearly chasing down.
Mm.
Like when you watch, like, did you guys see the video online?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when you look at that thing, it looks weird. I mean, it looks like what's that, Nick?
I was going to say I didn't watch the video. I just watched the episode on Joe Rogan with David Faber.
They showed the video on there.
It was a while ago. Watched it.
Yeah. There was also another incident that he's kind of like connected to. Is New York Times also came out what they called let's see. It's actually this one's from CNN, but this actually just on Monday, they just released the UFO videos from the Pentagon, and this is not his case, but he's kind of connected to the case because he knows the people and everything like that. Commander David Fravors came out in 2017. This story that we're talking about now. He's always stated that they've never been an attempt to cover this up at all. Like he got back, he reported it. And the only reason why it's become a known incident now is because the New York Times picked it up an article and it became more widespread. And he's just to me, he seems like an honest guy. Like when this incident happened and he wasn't in the news trying to spread it about, hey, I seen this, all this kind of like somebody contacted him because they heard about the incident, and he's just like, okay, whatever, I'll tell you guys what happened. It's not that's what it seems like to me.
He's definitely believable. Like I said, I do actually believe him. He would be one of the reliable or credible witnesses that we were talking about, I would believe.
Yeah, that's the reason why I want to ask you about the credible witness. I mean, he has no past history of lying. That has no mental illness. Guy doesn't appear to be any drug. He's a military guy. That's what he looks like to me. On top of that, he's a Michigan native, so maybe I'm biased in that.
One of the biggest things that make him credible, in my opinion, is the experience that he has and the amount of time that he has flying, because that's something you can't just replicate. You got to put your time in. You got to pay your dues, and that being said, that's kind of what makes him a credible witness, in my opinion. Because he, up there, he knows what he's doing. He's comfortable, so I have no doubt in my mind that what he's seen, if really seeing what he's seen, then I have no doubt in my mind that it probably is what it is.
You gotta forget, it's not just him too. The guy in his backseat and his his wingman. It's actually a girl. I'm sorry, wing girl or whatever. You could. Is there a proper vernacular for that?
I don't believe so.
We're gonna coin it, wing girl. Booyah.
We'll go with co-pilot.
Because it's not a co-pilot. It's not the same plane. Two different fighter jets.
Oh,
yeah. We're gonna go with wing girl.
Call her lady pilot. I don't know. Fuck it.
I'm going with wing girl.
Anyone on this episode, everybody. We just don't know.
Wing chick. We got wing dude and wing chick.
Start a thing. We're gonna go with wing girl, but his wing girl saw the same exact thing. And the person that was in her backseat, all four of them saw the same exact thing. This is something he saw and they couldn't see. You know what I mean? Like that's okay. Now you got one credible witness. Now you got four credible witnesses, so they're saying the same exact thing. You got like two. Let me ask you guys. Like, it's like one or two things here. It's either like a phenomenon that's happening in the atmosphere where it's creating an object that can be tracked through radar and eyes, or these guys are lying. Like, you guys think it's happening here?
Like I said, I believe they saw what they saw. So I have no question in my mind. I'm not going to debate them or try to pick holes in their story. I do.
What do you think, John?
I will not doubt that they saw a thing that defied their immediate explanation.
So let me ask you this, John.
Hmm.
I assume, just based on not only experience with you, but also talking to Andrew about the same topic, you don't believe aliens or UFOs, do you?
That's a statement which needs picking apart. First, on the subject of aliens, yes, I do believe that there is life or that life has developed on other planets, even intelligent life. With the amount of potentially habitable planets there are in just our solar system, let alone the entire fucking universe, uh, simple logic dictates that life must have developed somewhere else. In terms of UFOs, that's why UFO stands for Unidentified Flying Objects, because we don't know what the fuck it is. Now, I have a lot of misgivings about the idea that aliens or extraterrestrials, let's be more specific, I have doubts that extraterrestrials could, reasonably travel to Earth and okay, well, or that's the big thing because that's it. Like we were talking about on our space podcast, space is fucking big. Like, um, there was one thing I recently just saw, Andrew. I think you might have posted it. Okay, 11 million seconds is what, like 31 days, and 11 billion is 31 years. I don't remember the exact figuring,
Close
but that,
enough.
hmm? Like when it comes to space, we're talking like millions and billions and trillions of miles. And as
Infinite.
I understand physics, which granted I have a pretty good grasp on, but I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert. Disclaimers, disclaimers. Um, the idea of being able to traverse that distance is uh, iffy at best.
So let me ask you: you believe in other intelligent life
Hmm.
outside of Earth, in other words,
Hmm.
but don't think that they could have come up with something like we've come up with, rocket ships and the ships that we go up in space with. You don't think that they could have well advanced that, and that's what you get when you say UFOs? You don't believe that at all?
I think it's iffy. Like, that's it. The only assessment you can really make about that is from how we understand physics from the standpoint. And yes, there are ways, or there are theoretical ways and ways that do kind of line up with our understanding of the laws of physics. A big thing is just energy requirements. Like, okay, to warp space, you need a massive amount of energy in order to actually, compress compress or expand space in front of you. So, like, the biggest question is how did they solve these energy concerns? Because we're talking, star levels of power.
It's actually cool that you bring that up because man of David Fravor,
Hmm.
the incident pilots that were involved in the videos that they released just this past Monday, and the guy that we talked about our conspiracy theory episode, Bob Lazar, all talk to each other, and it's kind of eerie in a way that back how in the early '90s when Bob Lazar first came out, and he described how these things flew. Remember how we talked about he's seen obviously watched a test flight,
Hmm.
these things that he reportedly worked on. He said it was weird because obviously it's the element 115 's the thing, how they got the energy source, and he said that it was like able to reverse gravity to space and time around itself. And it was weird because he says that the thing hovered up and there was like a sparkle underneath its belly. Then after a minute, that sparkle went away, and then whatever direction it was going to move in, it went belly first. Kind of like if it was a car, it would
Hmm.
be the wheels pointed forward, and that was the direction would be going. And now in some of these videos, the one Commander David Fravor seen in other auto pilots that's how they describe this thing accelerated quickly. turned it belly first, and boom, it's gone. I thought that was pretty interesting because that's it could be coincidental, but at the same time, that's a hell of a lucky guess there, Bob. You know what I mean? He's saying that it's this element 115 that's the fuel source behind this thing. That's what he's stating. The propulsion system. I personally don't know shit about physics, man. Everything I get off of physics, I'm watching deGrasse Tyson. You know what I mean? Like I don't understand the math or anything like that. But I did hear you say it's iffy. Well, iffy doesn't mean impossible.
No, it doesn't mean impossible. And in terms of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, I don't know, not Commander Fravor, but the other dude who was sitting in on it. I don't recall his name. Jeremy Corbell. Is that
Jeremy
okay?
Corbell? Yep.
There were some things he said that were true, but not quite accurate, I would say. Like, just speaking from the technology standpoint, he referred to it as a reactionless drive, which, okay, yes, more than likely. But the whole concept of a gravity drive is suspect. Like, I understand what he's trying to get at, but I don't think he did a good job of explaining it. What he was trying to suggest.
He was trying to what?
He didn't explain it, I think, in a way that actually made sense to anybody who knows, the bare bones of physics. Like, okay, calling it a gravity drive is a bit of a misnomer because, like, what gravity is at least in or in thought of as what gravity is thought of being is curvatures in space-time. Now, saying, oh, it's a gravity drive doesn't quite give the whole scope. It's not using gravity. What it's doing is it's actually warping the contours of space-time, and that's an important distinction.
I didn't know that. He comes off to me like a kind of like a pseudoscientist guy anyways. Like he comes off like he believes just practically every single UFO incident like comes out. I think that's a big part to like mention like that this topic tends to drive people away. UFO and aliens. As soon as you say it, you just sound like a loony bin out there, like a loony bin. The reason why you sound like that is because there are a bunch of loony ass people out there spreading a bunch of loony ass stories. I've heard so many of the great ones, man. Like this one woman claims that she got like abducted and took it up in a spaceship and made love to like 9 different types and aliens, and her baby's like a hybrid. Like, oh, I've heard them all. Like those are the stories that the reason why people are like, oh, those are just for fucking crazy people. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm more interested in the ones that credible. I'm interested in the ones that guys that don't sound like lunatics, the guys that generally sound like they know what they're talking about, and the more witnesses they have towards an incident, the more I'm going to dive into that incident and find out more about it. I've always loved aliens.
Let me ask you a question. Do you find Dan Aykroyd a credible or a reliable witness?
Who?
Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. The episode I watched with him and on Joe Rogan, it sounded a little far fetched, honestly. Not that he didn't see. Again, there's a difference when people claim that they've seen something. They could wholeheartedly believe that that's what it was, but it could have been something else. You know what I mean? Misconception, in other words. So some of the things that he was saying just kind of took me a little differently because the way he was explaining them just didn't seem right or real. I don't know. I don't think I would consider Dan Aykroyd a reliable witness in that aspect.
What do you think, John?
Dan Aykroyd smacked a little bit of having too many answers, for lack of a better term. Like this was something we talked about a little bit in the space podcast. Is that the people that we're tending to label as credible witnesses, they very blatantly state, no, I don't have all of the answers. And in fact, as far as the podcast with Commander Fravor, at no point he says, oh, this is an alien, I know it. All he's doing is he's describing the events as they happened. And Dan Aykroyd's one was a little bit too, oh, I know what this, oh, I know what that. That smacks to me of a little bit
More or
fantastic
less.
in the
More
sense
or
of
less.
fantasy.
Perhaps I'm a little biased because I'm a huge Roy fan.
Well, I am too, by the way. I am too. I love his movie. But John hit it on the nail when he says that it's just he's really expressing the fact that he knows exactly what it is. It's this, that, and the other. It just sounds a little more biased to me. He's not really looking at all the variables and kind of just trying to distinguish one from the other. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got one thing in mind, and that's it. You know what I mean? He's like you guys were saying about the Jeremy Corbell guy. I mean, how he was just like hell bent on he believes every UFO story or almost every UFO story. I think the same thing for Dan Aykroyd. He wants to believe it so bad that he has like kind of a fuzzy way of looking at it. Believes it automatically.
I get that completely because I've been like that. When I was a kid and I was learning about like UFOs, Area 51, etc., I think up until I was about like 16 or maybe even 18 years old, dude, I believed just about every single story that was presented to me. All these stories are like crazy until I find out, get life experience, and I realize, hey man, people are just fucking crazy. Then I like became skeptical, and now I'm like, I believe it. I think now more than ever. But that's the reason why I tend not to like listen. I'll listen to Dan Aykroyd's story. Like, yeah, cool. It sounds cool to me. But like, dude, you don't have it like any video evidence. You don't have like multiple witnesses. It's just that one's too up in the air for me. I mean, that's the reason why I try to stick to the ones like Commander David Fravor's story and shit like that. That's the ones that are like very credible to me.
I agree with David Favors. Like I said, I don't think I agree with Dan Aykroyd's experiences because he has multiple ones. If you guys watch that, I know Andrew watched the episode because he's the one that turned me onto it. But if you watch that episode, he's got way too many of them that just like Andrew was saying, with no evidence, no witnesses, no nothing other than just what you're saying. I mean, it's hard to just go off of that, Not saying I don't like Dan Aykroyd. I love his movies. He's a funny guy and all that, but he's just one of those guys that looks at it one way, and he wants to believe it so bad that he just automatically sees it. It's like a misjudgment.
He's cherry picking the facts to support his narrative, which, I mean, yes, that is one way you can make an argument, but at the same time, it's a flimsy argument.
I agree with you there, John. It's still a good podcast, regardless. Man, I love Dan Aykroyd. He's like 25% of my childhood. For real, dude. But let me give you guys some final thoughts about at least Commander David Fravor's. You believe it or you don't believe it?
I believe it.
I believe he saw a thing that defied immediate explanation.
So in other words,
okay, hold up. Do you think this is the actual object that they do? So you're basically saying that you think that they tracked an object, but they just don't know what it is.
Yes, which
right.
They admit themselves. They tracked an object. They don't know what the hell it was, but they just know it wasn't, anything capable with the current extent of human technology.
Okay, do you think there was an object there?
Could be. I wasn't there. I'm not about to call this man a liar, especially when he presents, or he presents his information in a very matter-of-fact way. You could almost say that it's like he's reading from memory the report that he wrote, for post-op debriefing. So, like, that's it. Yes, he obviously saw a thing. What that thing is.
That's a point to point out. That's the reason why they do those reports immediately when they come back, because so they can remember it correctly. Because human memory can be a bit fuzzy.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, John. Do you think that this might have been like an illusion when they were up there? That they, what they seen and what they're claiming? Do you think that it was just possibly an illusion of what they seen?
No, because they actually did have cameras, and they also had, a variety of detection methods. There is, that's it. They had the radar. They had the, I forget what it was, but basically the onboard camera for the aircraft. They had, thermal imaging, so on and so forth. So, it was indeed a physical thing. What that thing is, up for debate.
Well, since we're on that subject, I'd like to hear, do you have any idea on what it could have been if it wasn't, in fact a UFO?
Well, it was a UFO. It was unidentified and flying, and it was an object.
Actually, they've changed that term.
Really?
The United States military no longer refers to them as UFOs. They refer to them as U.A.P.s, unidentified aerial phenomenons.
Ah, okay. So,
Yep. It's weird.
honestly,
Okay.
I think it's a bit more descriptive.
That's still kind of weird how they would do that.
Yeah, after all these years, let's just change the name of something that we've known for many years, right?
Yeah, actually, the UFO unidentifying flying object actually came from a term that was coined back in 1954. It was coined here. So many notes here. It was coined back in 1954 by the United States Air Force. Actually, they actually came out with a few different names when they first came out with it. It was a UFO, UFO-B, UFO-AF. They've had it, but UFO seemed to be coined and eventually got into with the flying discs and saucers and et cetera, and become to know how we know it now.
Oh, there might be a bit of intentional
Oh,
distancing from the term, I guess, maybe.
yeah, that's weird. That's the reason why I said that's kind of weird that they would like try to get away from it. It came like back in the day, like they coined the term conspiracy theory. The reason why they made that term is for the CIA made it up. It's for anytime that somebody was talking about a conspiracy theory, they sounded like a nuts person. They sounded like somebody not to be taken seriously. That was the whole reason why that name was like brought up. And conspiracy theories and UFO and aliens just kind of went hand in hand for like the longest time. And now they're trying to seem like they're trying to get away from it being loony thing and trying to make it the actual professional thing that's actually happening. It's weird. But like, say if this was its own incident, like it's just happened, only Commander David Fravor and those other 3 pilots happened, and nobody else, I'd be like more inclined to believe that there's a explanation for it. But how many credible incidents we have out there? Just video and multiple witnesses. I'm pretty sure, Nick, don't you have like one that you did a little bit into?
Yes, I did the Phoenix Lights. And the main reason, before we go into it, the main reason why I did the Phoenix Lights is because there's multiple sightings of pretty much the same and similar thing. But also, it's more far-fetched to me. I kind of I picked this because I kind of want to disprove it or discredit it more than I want to agree to it. So that's why I did it. First, let's let everybody know when it happened and how it happened. Phoenix Lights happened on March 13th, 1997. It was a triangular form of lights seen passing over Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico State. There's a couple instances that one of the guys I like to go over is John Kaiser. He was standing outside with him, his wife, and sons in Prescott Valley, and they seen a triangular formation of lights. And the reason why I wanted to go over this one is because they seen it different colors. They were orange, they were white, and red. Now, do we have any idea on why they would be different colors? Because beside the Phoenix Lights, I haven't come across the article or another sighting with lights that are different colors in the sky. Anybody else?
Not I said the fly.
Andrew? Now, one of the things that I found very interesting is on that day, the government, or I should say the U.S. Air Force, claimed that it was flares dropped in a training exercise. But the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act from 2019 by John Greenwald, revealed that on that day and at that time, there was no exercises being conducted. Now, again, I picked this because I more or less wanted to discredit it more than I wanted to agree to it. Agree with David Faber. I knew Andrew was going to do that on David Faber. So I wanted to pick this. Andrew, by the way, gave me this idea for Phoenix Lights. But this is the one instances that I kind of feel it's far-fetched. You've seen some lights in the sky, so you automatically think it's a UFO or, some kind of proof of alien existence. I highly disagree with that. What do you think?
It doesn't.
John?
Not congruent with good logic, no.
Anybody who wants to watch these lights, I know they could Google and go on YouTube to watch them anytime. Phoenix Lights is actually one of the very first incidents that got me into the UFO thing when I was a kid. I remember being on the news and shit. I thought they were real. When I watched that video, I can't think of anything else that could have possibly be. Even like drones with lights on them. I don't think even drones with lights could do those kind of formations that quickly.
Well, I don't think they had drones like that back then. Well, they may have and didn't know about it, but I guess.
That's no. It happened, and obviously, and it got viewed by like thousands of people. This is not something that just like one person saw. This is not something two, or not even tens. They were not even hundreds. We're talking about thousands of people seeing this, the Phoenix Lights, and like you can hop on YouTube and like Google Phoenix Lights, and like you're gonna find probably like 50 different videos of it. There's so many. I think the famous one is when the guy that was on top of the hill and he was like over the city and he was viewing it. But again, it's a good one to bring up too, Nick, because again, like you think that when we're talking about credible witnesses, right? Like you think one thing that would make witnesses more credible is that thousands of people saw the same exact thing.
I like the way John put it when we were talking about this a moment ago. Yes, I agree they've seen something. Obviously, if you have that many witnesses to that same thing happening, I don't discredit that. I'm discrediting it, the fact saying it's proof of alien existence, a U.F.O, something from outer space not known to our planet. That's what I disagree. I mean, to say just because you see some lights in the sky, I understand they were triangular formation, that it was going up and down with no sound. I know John Kaiser, he was the instance that said that it was flying low enough to where he thought you'd be able to hear something or see. All he says is there was a white nose and orange lights around it in a triangular formation. Now again, not saying that they didn't see what they seen. Not saying they didn't see a bunch of lights going on in the air. I'm not saying they didn't see it kind of travel in a way that is not known for planes or helicopters or any kind of aircraft that we know of as of now. But to say that's proof of alien existence, I picked this one because this is one that I feel that could be discredited just based on what people saw. This is what I was talking earlier about, David Fravor, that he has experience. You want to talk about reliable witness, this is a guy that is trained and has multiple hours doing the same thing over and over again. That is more credible than a bunch of people sitting around at a barbecue seeing some lights in the sky to me. I mean,
that's why I brought up like the number thing. I see what you're saying about Commander Daker, and he's got all the training and everything that makes him a credible witness. Like, no, like if you could see maybe if it was 2 or 3 people that saw this, but we're talking about thousands of people, like, different people saying they saw the same exact thing. Now, on top of the video evidence, that is evidence. I mean, there might not be like a physical, like you're holding metal or anything like that. The video evidence is still evidence nonetheless. I mean, people have been convicted and locked up because they've been videotaped of robbing a bank and we could see their face, and that's the reason why they're in jail now is because we trust video.
Yes, but let's really kind of go over the video. It's just a bunch of lights in the air. Now, again, I'm not saying I have a realistic or a reasonable explanation for it myself, but to automatically assume that it's, proof of alien existence, or, when it comes to well-advanced technology at that time, I just highly doubt that that's what it was. Now, again, yes, they got video evidence of the triangle formations, the lights, and they're passing by and all that, but does that really prove that it's proof of alien existence? I really don't think so. David Favor's video, I would agree with that one because that one is more detailed, that one's more descriptive than just some lights in the sky. You know what I mean?
Well, if it was just that incident alone, then yeah, like just like I was saying with the Commander David Fravor, like that just happened by itself, and we have never happened before or after. Like I'd agree with it. I'd be like, hey man, there's got to be some other explanation there. Obviously, it's never happened again. But we got like you're saying that about like the Phoenix Lights, and like I agree with you guys. It's not like 100% proof that like aliens exist out there or anything like that, but you have plenty of other like things that happened exactly like that. How many times has this happened before? Like, hey man, something's actually going on here.
More than one.
More than 2, more than 3, like.
Like I said, I believe in them. I really do. It's the color scheme kind of throws me off, honestly, because what's up with the different colors? First of all, I mean, think about it. I mean, if you're up in the, what are you fucking with everybody? You're just throwing a bunch of colors and a bunch of lights on the bottom of your ship just to fuck with everybody flying over? I mean, really? I just don't think that instance was a cause for, oh, that's alien proof, or that's, is what it is. I just don't believe that. To me, it's more like how Dan Aykroyd was presenting it. It's more or less like, he sees one thing one way, and that's all he's going to believe. You know what I mean?
I could get that. I actually got another one here, and this is one of my favorite ones. I've delved into this way more than once, probably like 5, 6, maybe even 10 times. But any UFO nut out there is gonna know what this is right when I name it off, and it's the Battle of Los Angeles. This explanation I'm gonna get on it, like a little facts from it. You can Google and Wikipedia anytime you want to fact check me. But the Battle of Los Angeles happened obviously in Los Angeles. It happened.
I thought New Mexico.
It was about you. I'll bet you thought I was going to say Philadelphia. You kind of fucking threw your curveball, didn't you?
Ooh, I thought you were going to say China.
China.
Battle of Los Angeles happened back in the late night of February 24th to February 25th in 1942 over L.A. The incident occurred 3 months after the United States entered World War II. So, obviously take a piece of grain of salt because of the heightened sentences where we are at the war. There's also happened was over Los Angeles. An object came towards a military base. When that object popped up towards the military base, because of our heightened sentence, we did not play around. Immediately put that thing under spotlight, and we opened fire on the fucking thing. We at least tell. You can hear plenty of there's witnesses about this incident. Obviously, they tend to be older now that talk about it. A lot of them were kids. Remember all the shooting that was going on, but there was an object that was seen in the air. I can't remember the exact number of artillery that was fired at this thing, and the amount of firepower, but it was a lot. It was not just 1 or 2 shots. They were generally trying to take this flipping thing down. Is you can hop on the internet, and I think it's on Wikipedia. You can see the picture. There's a famous picture taken of the UFO. Basically looks like a general flying saucer with all the lights pointed at it. One of the most famous pictures when it comes to UFOlogy cases out there. They love to bring up. The reason why I want to bring this one up because it's not only again an incident that plenty of people have seen and plenty of trained army military personnel, they were trying to take this thing down. They're firing at this thing. Obviously, it was such big enough object for them to be able to identify that they seen it as a threat, so they started firing at this. I mean, that's not going to be a cloud or anything. I mean, this is obviously something that was hanging up there, and they were trying to take this thing down. That I'm not saying that I'm not saying, I'm going to steal this line from the Goo from Ancient Aliens. I love this line. I'm not saying it was aliens. It was aliens.
Now, let me ask you, Andrew, because I honestly don't know anything about the LA battle, honestly.
Okay.
But actually, was it stationary as they were shooting, or was it moving around trying to evade the artillery?
Thing didn't appear to try to move away from the artillery. They didn't. Not only did they seem to not be able to cause the thing damage, but it wasn't jagging around or anything like that. Did eventually fly, of course. They seen the thing flying, but it was not like how Commander David Fravor described it, where it was bouncing around and all that kinds of stuff. I'm pretty sure it was pretty stationary.
So either they were just a bad miss, or I should say bad shot, or it was maybe, I wouldn't say an illusion, but maybe something other than what they were thinking. Because if you're shooting at one thing that's stationary, I mean, with that type of artillery, mind you, it's highly unlikely that thing wouldn't have been brought down. Agree or disagree?
So when it happened, the press immediately ended up saying that it was just nerves and anxiety from entering the war, and that's basically how they back then they pretty much chalked it up as is what you just. So it's either illusion or something like that. I personally, I don't know, man. I look at that picture and how serious that. we come talking about people in the military, man, like these people are trained. They're not like average civilians. Like, how many people do you know that can't even make it through boot camp, let alone like been in the military for long periods of time? Like these people are trained to know what they're looking at and like shooting at, dude. So I don't. I just would assume assume that they're not going to be shooting at a cloud. You know what I mean? It's not just a balloon that they're sitting there trying to fire down.
I guess there would be another kind of logical reason that if they were shooting, maybe it was. And it's hard to say that because if it was so far up to where the missiles or the bullets and whatever they were shooting couldn't reach them, I don't think you could really see it that clearly, could you?
Depends on the size and perspective, and it's worth pointing out that most artillery grade rounds are fired with sufficient force that they're not going to be exiting the atmosphere, but they could probably go up. I'd have to actually crunch the numbers, but we're talking about pretty serious muzzle velocities here. So unless this thing was, sitting literally right on the edge of our atmosphere, I'm pretty sure any kind of artillery we would fire in terms of bullets would be would be able to hit it if it was visible to a significant degree.
Let me tell you all this. They fired so much at this thing, it caused 5 deaths. Car accident. People died in a car accident of a heart attack. That's how much they were firing it.
Well, with that being said, it's just kind of hard to believe that with all that firepower, they didn't shoot it down. I mean, what are we talking about? They had a force field around it where they couldn't touch it? I mean, that's ridiculous, right?
I don't know. But if you are firing that much at something, if they'd have just released a couple of shots, and it ended up being a balloon, immediately the balloon's going to be like obviously popped or what the hell ever, but it's going to go away and they're going to be like, all right, hold fire, it's not there anymore. For how much they fired and the amount of obviously damage that it caused, to kill 5 people, had to be up there for a little bit. That's not something that was up there for just like 10 seconds.
Right, but the way I'm looking at this is with like John was saying, with their type of artillery, it's not like they were shooting Glocks at it. You know what I mean? They were shooting some serious firepower at this. Yeah. For it to not even budge, from what I'm reading, by the way, I kind of Googled it as we were talking, but from what I'm reading, for it not to even budge or like deviate from its location or change direction, kind of try to evade the shots, for any of that, it's just it's hard to believe, honestly. Now, whether they're just so far, I mean, whether that thing was just so far well advanced in technology to where it had some kind of force field around it, which I highly doubt that, by the way. But it's not out of the question, I would assume. But for that to not even flinch, in other words, as you're getting, blown up by serious manpower, or I should say artillery, it's just that's a little hard to believe, honestly.
I agree with you, Nick. Hear their skeptical thoughts on this.
I don't disbelieve it because, like you were saying, I mean, if you're going to label something more credible witness, or if you're going to label something like reliable to that degree, I mean, yeah, the military would be one of them, I would assume, because they have the training, maybe not training to see fucking alien aircrafts or anything like that. But the point I'm making is for their type of experience, I would consider them a reliable witness. And the fact that many, many people saw the same thing that they were seeing as they were trying to shoot it down. I'm not disagreeing that they didn't see something. It's just to not be able to shoot it down with that much artillery they're shooting at it. Wow, that's crazy.
I agree, Nick. Indeed. I agree. I do know that John, when it comes to John, people don't know this, but when it comes to John's like a huge skeptic. Comes to U.F.O. He always has been, always will, probably always will be until he actually sees an alien walk out of the spacecraft. But obviously, me and him have gotten many arguments over this. We've known each other since we've been kids, so me and him have gotten many arguments over this. Oh, these 3 incidents that me and Nick have brought forward to you, John. What do you think about all this? What do you make out of all this, when you're listening to it with your skeptic ears?
One thing I think is whether or not they're extraterrestrials, that obviously remains to be seen. Any skeptic, the first thing they're going to say is, okay, give me something I can hold, give me something I can look at. And I do know that there's been metal found or droppings, or in the case of Bob Lazar, that they had actual access to a spacecraft allegedly. But one thing that kind of really tips me off about any potential, or this being any potential sort of extraterrestrial thing, is there are a lot of secondary requirements that need to be met. One, space travel just in general. Two, crossing literal astronomical different distances. Um, and three, the idea that any species wouldn't be able to do some kind of detection to see, oh snap, there's intelligent life on this planet, or life more complicated than amoeba or so, uh, from orbit. Like, why would they need to come and get down? Like, we have cameras that can see literally from space, or satellites and shit. Why would any UFO need to come and do physical investigation unless they were, doing something like taking samples or stuff like that? So the whole idea of like the Phoenix Lights, like, they were just chilling out in the air, and even Commander Fravor, the idea that they would just be down here chilling out really kind of throws up some red flags, because uh, unless there's some need to physically come down and collect some things or something like that, they would obviously have the technology to do all of their information gathering from a distance that would be beyond our ability to detect them.
Well, have you ever heard the phrase "curiosity kills the cat"?
I have.
Okay, well, there's a difference between looking at something on a television or looking at something on a video or through a lens than actually real life, evidence or real life observing. The simple fact is this: I mean, there's many things that we find boring watching on TV. For me, like, or I should say, for me per se, I used to hate watching golf because golf was boring. I like watching it now because I play it a lot. But even when I first started playing golf, I did not like watching it. It was boring as hell, right? It was boring as shit. But playing it was a whole different atmosphere.
All right.
Because am I physically doing it and seeing, the sights, all that good stuff? But it was a different feeling toward it. You know what I mean? And then, of course, over time, I began to just try to watch it on TV because it's pretty cool to watch. But I would assume it would be more along the lines of them just being curious, more than just wanting to watch it on a television or through a lens. They want to actually see, everything in reality, everything in, existence as in real life. You know what I mean? Instead of just watching it on a computer screen.
Yeah, I agree with Nick. It's kind of like we have like the reason why we have animals in zoos, man. I mean, well, why would you want to see an animal in the zoo when you could just like watch it on your phone?
Well,
good
zoos
point.
are kind of
Like
failing right now.
maybe they have that same kind of stuff.
Even before the current pandemic, zoos were having a little bit more difficulty driving in traffic. I do know there were some articles concerning the Detroit Zoo. I honestly couldn't tell you anything about them, but it was, about funding, not being able to drive in as much foot traffic. So kind of
about when people like go to study apes, like they're not just like watching on my camera. They want to be there. They want to see them for themselves. Like we've talked about this before about how like you just being intelligent is gonna make you curious. They could be down here just because they're curious, man. I think this like assumption that they're not going to want to just come down here, chill and watch us, or like so far ahead of us. I find that asinine, to be honest, because we do that. We do that with apes. Like we do that with the octopus. We do that with every single thing on this planet. Like and if we found a planet that's got other life on it, just like imagine how obsessed we would be. Forth. Like they could have found us just because we're in the Goldilocks zone. Come here and he'd be like, "Hey, man, these apes are strapping on like rockets in the back and shooting up into space. Like, like we're pretty fucking interesting." You know what I mean?
Those are all good points, except for one thing. When we do animal observations in the wild, it is done generally entirely passively. People are not involved. We are actually doing it from a bit distance, because examining something in its natural habitat requires not altering that habitat. The minute people start trying to get closer, interact with these animals, it's changing the natural environment. And it's also worth pointing out that to, like the great apes and stuff, we're a danger. Like, okay, they might be initially afraid of us, but uh, even a chimpanzee could kill a human being with significantly less effort than a human would take to kill a chimpanzee,
I agree, but
barring
let's look at
weaponry.
it this way. Let's look at it this way as well. Just like you're saying that we observe them in their natural habitat. In order for us to do that, to an extent, I should say, you have to get somewhat closer to them, right? I mean, yes, you could actually. I mean, we have the technology to where we can go to the goddamn Amazon and see a big ass anaconda, and we could be a mile away looking at it through a damn telescope if we wanted to. Strap a video camera on it, a GoPro or whatever, and zoom in, and you got it. You're done. But we like to.
John, like it. John just answered his own question.
Hmm?
Yeah, they're observing us and they're not changing our habitat.
Well, I'm just saying, if they're visible, then they are in fact affecting how we act and the habitat in general. Like the reason we have all of these tools to look at, natural habitats and so on from afar is so that way we're not fucking in it. The minute you introduce yourself to an intelligent species, you immediately change the environment. And intelligence being, not human level, but in like the case of great apes and even octopuses, which theoretically might actually be pretty near human intelligence.
I've heard that before.
Octopuses are very smart. I've heard that before too.
Yeah, like there's not a reliable metric, but I do know that in terms that's it. Octopuses, they are smart cephalopods. Is that what they are? I probably shouldn't say words.
I would agree. I would agree with what you're saying, John. I mean, it's just like human beings. I mean, we do kind of destruct or kind of infringe on their environment. I mean,
Yeah.
we're on the Amazon all the time to go see an octopus. They go diving. I mean, to go see apes, we go in their house, and I mean, so it's the same thing. If you believe in this type of stuff, in my opinion, I do. I would think the same thing of aliens. That one could argue that they're well more advanced. What do they need to look at us for? Because they already know everything about us, or know what we do because they've already done it, then 10 times better than us. But it's the same thing of curiosity kills the cat. They're just curious on what we're doing, how we're doing things nowadays, if we've advanced any farther, or we whatever the case, have we invented or discovered something that could be useful to them? So they're just kind of dropping down, kind of scoping things out. I mean, again, curiosity kills a cat. Things, people do get curious, and if you're stationary in one place for so long, you get bored, or you get something out of the ordinary will excite you. You know what I mean? For example, this crisis going on. If we were really locked down in our home to where you couldn't leave your front yard, going to the park would be an exciting thing for you. Or I should say many others. Maybe not everybody, but you get my point, right?
Right.
So it could be the same instances to to the aliens, if you will, that they're just more curious and they're they see something and whether they know about it, they've seen it millions of times before, or they know what we're doing, or they whatever. They just want to kind of go adventure or something. I don't think that's out of the question either.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I've actually read, or this is connected, but I've read a lot of fiction where a first encounter experience with humans is done by human level intelligent extraterrestrials. Just to throw names out there, Star Trek and actually Animorphs, which a lot of people sleep on, but we're not talking about that right now. And it's worth pointing out that their reasons for going down to actually interact with humans are either the kind of first contact, we are officially announcing ourselves or our presence to humanity, or in the other case, because there's something directly beneficial that would cause them to need to come down. Or there is also the third but less likely case of, their spacecraft is damaged and that they have to make planetfall in order to attempt repairs.
I guess there's many theories you can kind of throw out there on why they would come here. I mean, for your example, your damaged ship, they need kind of different atmospheric kind of gravity or whatever to kind of jumpstart something, or whether it be just kind of curious or going on adventures. I guess you can throw many theories out there on why they would come here. But I mean, simple fact that for, like Andrew was saying, like us with animals and all that, it's not that we don't know about them or know enough about them or don't know all about them. We're still observing them. Every single day we still do those same things that we've done for many, many years. Apes, octopuses, and I mean, I know that I'm sure there's things that we haven't discovered about them, I'm sure, but the fact is they're curious, just kind of want to whatever. They like doing it for fun. You know what I mean? It could be. There's many theories you can throw at it that would make it logical, honestly.
I agree. I've put a lot of thought into this. Like, why would they come here? I've put a lot of thought into this, and it's like it's basically just a guessing game. But I honestly think the theory is the reason why they've come here is a giant ass science experiment. I really do think that they're just like they've been absorbing us for a long time, and they're just going to keep doing it because maybe they even come down and like change some things in the atmosphere or what the hell ever. Like I think from us to them, we're just a huge science experiment. I think that's all we really are. To get to the level of technology that they would need just to get here from outside of our solar system, like you have to be so far ahead of us. It's unreal. And like the ways I've heard Bob Lazar describe what those spacecrafts are like, they're just like light years ahead of us when it comes to technology. Right now, it's like trying to think about us like being in their shoes, like us like 1,000 2,000 years from now or what have you. We're a point where we can get to that, where we can travel to other solar systems and other galaxies. I think would approach us like that. I think we would approach other beings like that. Like, say if we go whatever galaxy away and then we discover a solar system that's got intelligent life on it, and like kind of like awful like lizards, and they're kind of intelligent, and like, hey, let's fuck with them a little bit, see how they really get. And next thing you know, it's like hundreds of years later, and they're fucking like they're using steam propelled. Maybe they don't even use steam. Maybe we're interested because we started off using steam, and these guys just started off right immediately from Elephant 115. And they're already making like, you know what I mean? We're gonna study them as long as we can until like they reach our point, and they'd be like, hey, there's other people out here. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a good point too. You can kind of bring up as well. It's another good theory, I should say, that they're kind of observing us throughout a time era, to kind of how far we are advancing or how we're kind of mutating or what have you, to the point where they're trying to, I guess I should say, like determine a timeline. You know, how long will it take us to get to their level compared to what them, or you know what I mean? Just kind of like going through different time eras. I mean, you can go back to the dinosaur age. Okay, the dinosaurs, big, meteors, or asteroids took them out, and now we kind of evolution kind of began from there, and so on and so forth. And this is where we're at now compared to when we were in the Stone Age. You know what I mean? So I guess that is a good theory that you can bring up, saying that, yeah, okay, they started out not knowing a damn thing. They were, wiping their ass with their hand. Now they're using some kind of fabric or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm just giving an example, but they're kind of seeing how we evolve in that case.
All right. Now, I would like to present to you guys a bit of a twist that is honestly even more insane than it being extraterrestrial life, but still lines up within our understanding of physics. Okay. What if it's not extraterrestrials, but extra-dimensional visitors?
Well, like a doppelganger?
Kind of, yes. Something for people to Google, and you guys yourselves may have heard of it. If there is an interpretation in physics that's called the many worlds theory, and the idea is that, for trying to find a way to put this, basically that there are an infinite number of alternate realities that are occupying the same space as us generally, but is something separate from us. So now the reason I bring this up is that from the position of string theory, and Einstein's equations actually back this up a little bit, it is easier to cross the dimensional gap than the space-time gap, which is to say come from another solar system. Now,
okay, so You're more referring to like some kind of, I wouldn't say time travel. I would say more along like the interdimensional travel, correct?
Right. If you guys have ever seen the show Fringe, this is kind of its whole entire premise.
I got a better one.
Hmm.
Rick and Morty.
Say what?
Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty, you uncultured swine.
Oh, Rick and Morty. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's actually a good example.
Well, I mean, it kind of reminds me of Flash too, like how they go to different worlds. They got the same people, like doppelganger, and they got the same people. They're just like, they live a separate life. The same.
That's from another dimension. I've heard this before. It's pretty cool that you brought it up. I said that's theoretically possible. Like they could be not even like aliens from another like solar system, just from a whole other dimension. Period. And if I think if it was that if they are from another dimension, I think they would make them even more curious about us.
Mhm.
I think that would be more interesting. Because let's be honest, man, with like all the number, like how you just described earlier, just like the amount of space that's out there, it's just not only is it infinite, but the planets and like the stars and everything. I mean, we know it. There's other intelligent life. It's got to be like the numbers are so astronomically low for it not. But I think that another dimension being there would just be more interesting, at least.
Well, I bring this up through kind of a certain application of Occam's razor, which is typically misquoted, and I'll probably end up using that. The simplest explanation has the highest probability for truth. And when you look at the physics of it, there are a lot more problems that space travel needs to solve than interdimensional travel, especially because if you assume all of the major facets, as in, where the Earth is in relative location, or where the Earth's position, rather, in relative space time compared to where it could be in terms of space travel, it's easier to just move laterally along dimension and not have to worry about space-time because it's all the preceding events other than the major differences are the same. The Earth is going to be in the same space-time location. There's a very good chance that it's going to have breathable atmosphere for any type of interdimensional being because evolution probably took a similar path, so on and so forth. It's just that some difference ended up causing, a developmental difference.
It's pretty fucking cool.
That's fucking deep, bro. It's deep.
Man, glad I smoked before this. On my mind, dude. All right, now that we pretty much like dived into all that, let me I know Nick's already said it. Let me ask you, John. All the stories that what do you think? Do you think that people like do you think these are aliens? Do you think it's just Russia? Like, what do you think?
This is gonna sound familiar. I believe these people saw a thing. Like, I don't care to make a guess of, okay, was it, the Russians? Was it extraterrestrials? Was it this, that, and the third? Because it's kind of, for me, it's a fruitless endeavor, which is ironic since I am the king of fruitless endeavors. But I'm more interested in the mechanics of it rather than, who it was, why did it happen. There's the question of who was it will be answered by figuring out just what the fuck happened.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask this in a way that you have to answer yes or no. Do you believe in aliens?
Yes.
Think.
All right. I personally think that I think they're UFOs, man. But I mean, not the UFOs, but I think they could be aliens, interdimensional, but whatever. Like, I don't know what they are, but I do know that something is going on here. Common sense would dictate that they're more than likely like aliens from the galaxy or whatever, just getting curious about us and like trying to study us. It's really hard to just be like, oh, that's 100% fact, and like this is 100% not fact. That's the reason why I try to dive into like the credible witnesses and everything like that. Like it's even hard for me to make up my own mind. 'Cause I'm a man of science. You know what I mean? Like you
Mm.
put an experiment in front of me, see the results of that experiment from your hypothesis, and I'm able to make up my own thoughts from there. With all these stories that we're presenting, it's just hearsay, hearsay,
Mm.
hearsay, hearsay. That's all it is. You know what I mean, and I get interested in this kind of thing because if they are here, I would like to know the reason. I mean, who even knows? They probably that's another thing I wanted to bring up. They're probably not even aliens. So like, let's be honest. Like, they are coming from another galaxy. What makes it think that they're actual biological beings and that they're not just like androids or what the hell ever that we sent out to record things? So because they didn't want to be aging. You know, once you go out there and you start traveling, you're aging and all that. I know John knows more about the physics behind that, but like, why wouldn't I? Couldn't I mean, we do that now with drones. So why couldn't they be doing that with the U.F.O.s? You know?
It's very possible.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of theories. A lot of theories.
Right. That's one of that's one of my favorite ones. Though, like you have like those gray alien depictions. Like everybody knows, you don't have to give a source for that. They're everywhere. Gray aliens with the big black eyes and the brown heads and everything like that. Like everybody's always assuming that they're actual like biological beings. I think there's just more or less like androids or something. I mean, that's the reason why. Say if like Bob Lazar is telling the truth, and then these are archaeological digs. That's the reason they didn't that crash. They didn't crash. They just left them here. They have no more use for them. Just they got them flying out of the line back in their home or whatever. That's the way I like to think of it. You know what I mean?
All right.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Who knows? Well, if the Facebook memes are anything, then you know, after the plague will be aliens. But that's going to be it for us for today. Thank you guys very much for listening. Please like and subscribe. I'll have sources and whatnot posted down below in the comments. If you guys got any ideas for a topic you'd like us to cover, please hit us up. We're still small, so we're still able to interact with everybody. And please check out our side shows. Andrew's got one that he's in the works with Nick, and me and him have one called Nerdborn. That's
It'll
it.
be called Shut Your Face Podcast.
Okay. So you guys did decide on Shut Your Face?
Shut your face.
All right. So that's it. Check out Nerdborn. Check out the upcoming Shut Your Face when they get around to that. And